Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is the Mental Wellness channel with Waihiga. If you're new here, I hope that you stick around and take a listen to what I have to share. Today, I want to talk about, does an alcoholic deserve a liver transplant? Let's get into it.
Doctor's reaction.
Hi guys, this is not fluid in my stomach. Hi, I'm Trina, an alcoholic addict. I've been clean off meth almost 2 years and I've been 4.5 months sober. I did not listen to my specialist when he told me to stop drinking or I'd have huge liver problems, and here we are.
And most people already know that alcohol is not good for you and it can lead to a bunch of problems like liver failure. But one of the things that can happen with liver failure is that your liver can actually grow, which is called hepatomegaly. And this amazing woman, Trina, is actually showing us what hepatomegaly really can look like. This is a very severe case of hepatomegaly. Another thing that can happen with chronic heavy alcohol use when you get liver failure is something called ascites, where fluid builds up in your stomach, kind of like this. But this right here, according to Trina, is her hepatomegaly. So yeah, drinking, not the best thing in the world.
Okay, I'm going to try and land this plane. I'm sorry this has taken so long of why I had to bury my ex-husband last week. So where I left off, he was finally diagnosed with full-blown cirrhosis and end-stage liver failure. He was told he had to quit drinking, and for a solid year after he was told that, he refused to quit drinking. So he was in and out of the hospital on a regular basis for the first year. And then the enablers, the two half-brothers and the stepfather, remind him that they had an uncle who had a very similar pattern of alcoholism and that he was given a liver. So my ex-husband starts to demand that he wants to be on the liver transplant list. And they explain to him that he has to be sober for 6 months to be on the list. And they will then, do the screenings and start the process and all of that. So he does that. He becomes sober for 6 months. And right at the 6-month anniversary, he is so proud, and he's told the doctors, and it's been 6 months, and he's been in and out of the hospital now for the toxins every few weeks. And so it's right around Easter of last year. And the brother who's a chiropractor hosts an event at a lovely restaurant in town for Easter Sunday brunch. And they bring the whole family in, exclude my children, but they bring him in, and they post on Facebook a family photo of everyone at brunch with Bloody Marys in their hand toasting. Now, he had just made the 6-month sober mark and posts that picture on Facebook. So my daughter, who's a nurse practitioner and is overseeing his care, loses her mind, to say the least. And he asks them not to put a lot of liquor in his. So she explains that even a little bit of liquor is still not sober, not clean and sober, and you may get kicked off the list now. They go back to the doctor. The doctors realize that, he's not sober, and he's deferred from the list. Here we go again. He goes another 6 months, and this time he maintains absolutely no alcohol and remains sober. However, he's still living with roommate Ralph. He has a bad episode. Ralph calls the ambulance and sends him to the hospital. And Ralph, at this point now, says to my daughter, he can't come back here. I can't keep doing this. He can't come back here. You've got to find a place for him to live. So at this point, we don't know. It's really bad. Another year's passed. We're at the 2-year mark, and we don't know how long he's even going to last at this point, waiting to get a transplant. Part 2. Okay, here's hopefully the final part to why I had to bury my husband last week. My ex-husband, I'm sorry. I keep saying that. So he's back in the hospital now. We're at the 2-year mark of him having full-blown cirrhosis, end-stage liver failure. Now he's been sent to the hospital for some sort of breathing episode. Roommate Ralph says he can't come back there. We have to find a place for him to live. My daughter is at work when this all occurs. She calls me and she says, can you go up there? They've intubated him. He's in ICU, and we don't think he's going to make it out. Even Ralph is concerned. He's like, I don't think he's coming out of the hospital this time. They do hospital rounds. I'm there. They invite me to listen. I am a realtor. I know nothing about anything medical. I have no knowledge. I'm listening to all of this, and I ask the question trying to find out, like, what's our time frame? How long do we have to live? I mean, can he get a liver? I'm just asking these random questions because we're all so confused. And the doctor says to me, oh, do you want him to get back on the liver transplant list? And, what would I say? No. So I was like, well, I don't know. If he can, I guess. I don't know. He goes, well, are you going to give him the care he needs after the transplant? Well, this is my children's father. I'm a single woman. It's now down to me and my 3 kids. I don't know. So I answer, I guess, sure. If that's what I have to do. Next thing I know, they are transferring him to a large teaching hospital in our area, one of the best hospitals in the country. And he's back in for liver screening, this time the real deal, the whole 9 yards, because, he's maintained he's been sober and all of that. So as he's going along in this process, they start to do the toxicology screenings and to make sure of the sobriety. And he's been in the hospital now for 6 weeks. 6 weeks through this process. They've dealt with all of his other issues, and he does seem to be a viable candidate for a transplant. So my children, of course, are thrilled. He's thrilled. The family is happy. Larry, Mo, and Curly are beside themselves that he's going to get a liver and be able to live. And, everything is progressing and moving forward. And then all of a sudden, my daughter gets a phone call from the medical director and says he's being deferred. He is no longer on the transplant list for right now. And we have several decisions that have to be made. So my daughter asks why. Oh, sorry, I'll go to the next part and explain because I'm out of time.
So my name is Waihiga. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a recovering alcoholic, 6 years and 7 months by the grace of God in recovery. And I came across this documentary that was talking about alcoholics who had basically reached the end of their lives. They had liver cirrhosis. They had shot up their livers and were basically dying. They were dying and they were waiting for a liver transplant. And the question behind the documentary was, do these alcoholics deserve to get a liver, as opposed to other people who have conditions that are serious and not self-imposed? As an alcoholic, I can tell you that alcoholism is not a self-imposed disease. It may look like a disease that is self-imposed because the symptoms do look like we go out, we drink ourselves to death. Then now we're on the brink of death and we're asking the people around us to please take care of us. However, that's the unfair part about alcoholism. Alcoholism is a disease, and it's a disease of the mind, body, and soul, as I understand it to be. Do you think someone in their right mind is going to drink themselves to the point where they have destroyed their liver? If you think someone in their right mind, if you think someone who is mentally okay can drink themselves to the point of rupturing their liver or liver cirrhosis or fatty liver, I don't think you understand the point that I'm trying to make. Alcoholism completely takes over you mentally, spiritually, completely takes over. And there is nothing we will not do to get our hands on a drink, even if our body wills, even if our body is breaking apart, even if our body is falling apart. And most people I see that get to the point of liver failure are normally functional alcoholics. There's a thing where people say that they're functioning alcoholics. These are the people who have not lost their jobs. They haven't lost their source of income. They don't listen when people tell them, you really need to cut your drinking. You really need to stop drinking. You really need to slow down your drinking. Because to them, after all, they pay their bills. Socially, they're acceptable. Socially, they meet the requirements that everybody else in life is meeting. So why should they be an alcoholic? And that is absolutely the wrong measure in which to regard oneself as an alcoholic. If you look around and you say, well, I'm keeping up with bills like my peers, or I got a degree like my peers, I have a job like my peers, or I am at this point in life like my peers, so that makes me not an alcoholic, that is really the wrong way to look at it. What makes one an alcoholic is the allergic reaction while ingesting alcohol. When you drink alcohol, does everything else fade into the background? Does alcohol take the whole scene? Does alcohol become the light of your life? If so, if alcohol becomes the god of your life, that liquid, if you live for that liquid, you probably might have an issue with alcohol. So functional alcoholics or functioning alcoholics are normally the ones who get to unravel physically because they're able to keep their jobs. They're able to maintain their drinking. So they kill themselves slowly but surely by drinking so much and consuming so much alcohol on a daily basis that their liver cannot handle it. And they end up dying from liver cirrhosis or liver failure or multiple organ failure. They get things like jaundice. It's a really sad and painful way to die. So the whole conundrum and the whole issue in that documentary was, first of all, getting alcoholics onto the liver transplant list. So it required that one be 6 months sober. And that was actually a big step. And I'm talking, this documentary was shot in the US, so the subjects were Americans. So it required that the alcoholic must be sober for 6 months in order to get onto the list for candidates who were able to get a transplant or who would be viable to get a transplant. And that was cut down from 2 years. Before, it used to be the alcoholic had to be sober for 2 years. You're already telling someone who's completely dependent on alcohol that they must be stone cold sober for 2 years to get onto a transplant list. It's asking for the impossible. So they fine-tuned it and they said, okay, fine, 6 months. 6 months, also kind of impossible. Some patients did it. And what did they do after they got the liver transplant? They went right back to the bar and they drank on the new liver. And some of you may think, oh my gosh, that is an awful thing to do. How ungrateful is that person? How can they get a new liver that someone obviously died and donated a liver? And then the first thing that they do is they go and they drink. That is exactly what an alcoholic would do. I'm not shocked at all. That is precisely what an alcoholic would do. An alcoholic with untreated alcoholism, that is precisely what they would do. We alcoholics do not have a program of action. If we don't have God in our lives, if we don't have the solution to our alcoholism, the solution will always be to drink. So you can't tell us, oh yeah, you're dying because you're drinking, and expect us to stop. You have to understand that the reason we became alcoholics to begin with is because we think that alcohol is our solution. And we are so fixed on that. We're so fixated on that. And if we don't get another solution that is more powerful than alcohol, we are not going to recover. You have to give us God for us to recover. You have to give us a program of action for us to recover. Getting sober it's a miracle in itself, because coming out of that denial for any alcoholic and having that moment of clarity where you see what it is for what it is, you see that it's killing you, you see that it's no longer the solution, you see that it has turned on you, and you see that the alcohol is no longer working. And it has not been working for a long, long time. And you need to get help. That in itself is a miracle, because it takes humility. Humility is another thing alcoholics don't have much of. We can be dying and still tell you, we can be dying. And a lot of alcoholics, this is how a lot of alcoholics die. We can be dying and we will still be telling you off. You can be giving us help and we will still be telling you off. So that is how someone gets on the liver transplant list. Gets a liver after 6 months of staying dry and goes back to the bar and drinks. Do I believe that alcoholics deserve a liver transplant? Yes, I do. I'm an alcoholic in recovery, of course. I do. I am biased, of course. I do believe that alcoholics, any human being deserves a liver transplant. And I know alcoholism to be a disease and it's not a moral failing. Because I know it's not a moral failing and it's not something that is self-inflicted and it's not something that an alcoholic wishes upon themselves or does to themselves. It's an allergy, it's a compulsion to drink, and it's one that only can be stopped by God and a program of action. And when it's your day, it's your day. However, I also understand that a lot of alcoholics don't get into recovery. And if they don't get into recovery, if a lot of alcoholics don't get into recovery, we die. I also understand that. So it's an ethical issue, it's a controversial issue, but I do believe that alcoholics should get on the liver transplant list. I do believe that alcoholics deserve to get a liver. And I've told you my thoughts on why. So you guys let me know in the comment section down below. Most people think that alcoholism is a self-imposed disease. Not even a disease. I think most people think that alcoholism is a self-imposed crisis or something that one did to themselves. So do you think that an alcoholic actually deserves to get a liver transplant? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd be really interested to know your thoughts. Until the next video. Bye-bye. And happy Friday.